Michael's demeanor had shifted, becoming more approachable. "David, I noticed your reaction when I spoke about witnessing inappropriate behavior," he said gently. "Is there something you'd like to tell me?" David hesitated, battling years of ingrained fear against his desire to do the right thing. He thought of Margaret and all the times he had stayed silent. Finally, he made his decision. "Yes, Mr. Harrison," he said, his voice shaky but determined. "There is, and I think it's long overdue." For the next hour, David poured out everything he had seen and heard. He shared Richard's mistreatment of Margaret and other minority employees, recounted the bathroom incident, and described Margaret's collapse. As he spoke, he felt a tremendous weight lifting from his shoulders. Mr. Harrison listened intently, his expression grave. When David finished, Mr. Harrison leaned back in his chair, processing the information. "Thank you, David," he said finally. "I know that couldn't have been easy to share, but you've done the right thing. You've provided me with the information I need to take action." David nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. "What happens now?" he asked. Mr. Harrison's expression turned resolute. "Now we make things right. For Margaret, for you, and for everyone else who has suffered under this toxic culture. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but I promise you that things are going to change around here." As David left the meeting room, he felt as if he were seeing the office with new eyes. The fear that had held him back for so long lingered, but was overshadowed by a sense of hope. For the first time in a long while, he felt that maybe, just maybe, things could improve. Over the next few weeks, Hartwell Industries underwent a significant transformation. Mr. Harrison wasted no time in implementing new policies and procedures. Richard was placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation, and a company-wide training program on diversity and inclusion was rolled out. However, the most meaningful change, at least for David, came when Mr. Harrison insisted on visiting Margaret in the hospital. He asked David to accompany him. As they entered the small, sterile room, David's heart clenched at the sight of Margaret looking so frail in the hospital bed. Yet, when she saw them, her face lit up with a smile that seemed to erase years from her features. "Mrs. Johnson," Mr. Harrison said, taking a seat beside her bed, "I'm Michael Harrison, the new CEO of Hartwell Industries, and I believe you know David." Margaret nodded, her eyes curious. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Harrison," she replied, her voice warm despite her condition. "It's wonderful to see you," Michael said, leaning forward with earnest concern. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm here to offer you an apology on behalf of Hartwell Industries. The way you've been treated is unacceptable, and I want you to know that changes are coming." He proceeded to outline the forthcoming changes, including a thorough review of working conditions and compensation for all employees. However, it was his next words that brought tears to Margaret's eyes. "We'd like to offer you an early retirement package," he said gently, "with full benefits and a pension to ensure you and your grandchildren are well taken care of. It's the least we can do to make amends for how you've been treated." Margaret's hand trembled as she reached out to grasp Michael's. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what this means to me." As they left the hospital, David felt a sense of closure he hadn't realized he was seeking. "Thank you for doing that," he said to Michael. "It means a lot, not just to Margaret but to all of us who have worked with her over the years." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "It's a start. We have a long way to go to truly change the culture of this company, but it's a step in the right direction." He turned to David, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Which reminds me, I have a proposition for you. How would you feel about heading up our new employee relations department? We need someone who understands the challenges we've faced and has the courage to speak up when things aren't right." David was stunned. "But I didn't speak up for so long. I let things continue when I should have said something." "And yet, when the moment came, you did speak up," Michael pointed out. "That takes courage, the kind of courage we need to create real, lasting change." As David considered the offer, he realized that this was his chance to make a meaningful impact, to ensure what happened to Margaret would never happen again. "I'd be honored," he finally replied, his voice firm with newfound determination. "Excellent!" Michael clapped him on the shoulder. "We have a lot of work ahead, but I believe we can make Hartwell Industries a place where everyone can thrive." As they walked back to the car, David felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long time, he felt ready to face whatever came his way. In the months that followed, Hartwell Industries underwent a remarkable transformation under Michael's leadership, with David's dedication to improving employee relations playing a crucial role. The toxic environment that had festered under Richard's management began to dissipate, replaced by a culture of respect and inclusivity. Following a thorough investigation, Richard Blackwell was terminated from his position. The evidence against him, including David's testimony and accounts from numerous other employees, was overwhelming. His departure sent a clear message that discriminatory behavior would no longer be tolerated. David immersed himself in his new role with passion and commitment, tirelessly working to implement new policies, organize training sessions, and create an environment where employees felt safe to voice their concerns. Under his guidance, the Employee Relations Department became a vital part of the company's operations. One of David's first initiatives was to establish a mentorship program that paired newer employees with experienced staff members, fostering a supportive workplace culture. The mentorship program aimed to foster a sense of community within Hartwell Industries and provide support for those beginning their careers. To James's surprise and delight, Margaret agreed to serve as an advisor, sharing her wealth of experience and wisdom even in her retirement. The changes at Hartwell didn't go unnoticed in the business world. As news spread about the company's commitment to fairness and equality, it began attracting top talent from diverse backgrounds. This influx of new ideas and perspectives led to increased innovation and productivity, positively impacting the company's bottom line. For James, the most rewarding aspect of the transformation was witnessing the change in his colleagues. The fear and resignation that had once permeated the office were replaced by optimism and engagement. People smiled more, collaborated freely, and genuinely seemed happy to come to work every day. About 6 months after Michael had taken over as CEO, James received an unexpected visitor in his office. Margaret, looking healthier and happier than he had seen her in years. "Mrs. Johnson," he exclaimed, rising to greet her with a warm smile. "It's wonderful to see you. How have you been?" Margaret's eyes sparkled as she took a seat. "I'm doing wonderfully, James, or should I say Mr. Anderson, head of employee relations." James chuckled, still getting used to his new title. James is fine, Mrs. Johnson. You've known me too long for formalities." "Then you must call me Margaret," she replied, nodding approvingly as she looked around his office. "You've done well for yourself, but more importantly, you've done well for others. I've been hearing about all the changes you've made here." James felt a rush of pride at her words. "We still have a long way to go," he said modestly, "but we're making progress. How are you enjoying retirement?" Margaret's face lit up. "It's been a blessing. I can spend time with my grandchildren without worrying about making ends meet. And this mentorship program of yours has given me a new purpose. I never thought I could use my experiences to help others, but that's exactly what's happening." As they chatted, James marveled at the turn of events. Here was Margaret, once beaten down by the system, now thriving and helping shape the company's future. He, who had once been too afraid to speak up, was now leading the charge for change. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Michael poked his head in, smiling when he saw Margaret. "I thought I recognized that voice. Margaret, it's wonderful to see you. I hope you're not trying to lure James out of retirement." Margaret laughed, her joy still surprising James. "Not at all, Mr. Harrison. I was just telling James how impressed I am with all the changes around here. You've created something special." Michael's expression softened. "We've all created this together," he said. "Every person who spoke up, every employee who embraced the changes, they're all part of this transformation, including you, Margaret. Your strength and dignity in the face of adversity have inspired more people than you know." As the three continued to talk, James felt a profound sense of gratitude. He thought back to that day in the bathroom when he had been too afraid to stand up for what was right, and how different things might have been if he had found his courage sooner. But dwelling on the past wouldn't change anything. What mattered was the present and the future they were all working to create. A future where every employee felt valued and respected. As Margaret prepared to leave, she paused at the door and turned back to James. "You know," she said softly, "I always believed you had the potential to achieve great things. I'm just glad you've finally recognized it yourself." With those encouraging words, she exited, leaving James with a lump in his throat and a renewed determination to carry on the important work they had begun. That evening, as James packed up to head home, he took a moment to gaze over the office. The familiar rows of desks and humming computers remained unchanged, but the atmosphere felt different. People lingered, chatting and laughing with colleagues. It was no longer just a workplace. It had transformed into a community. He reflected on how far they had come and how much more they needed to accomplish. The mission of fostering a truly inclusive and respectful environment would always be ongoing. New challenges would arise and biases would need to be confronted. Yet, as he observed his colleagues sharing smiles and camaraderie, James knew they were on the right path. As he turned off the lights in his office, James made a silent vow, to himself, to Margaret, and to every employee at Hartwell Industries. He promised never to let fear silence him again, to always stand up for what was right, and to tirelessly work toward a workplace where everyone could thrive. With a smile on his face and purpose in his heart, he left the office, ready to face whatever challenges awaited him the next day. The transformation of Hartwell Industries was far from complete, but with each passing day, it became a story of hope, courage, and the power of standing up for what is right. As the sun set on another day, Hartwell stood as a beacon of change in the corporate world, a living testament to the idea that with courage, compassion, and commitment, even the most entrenched systems could be transformed. The journey had been long and sometimes difficult, but for James, Margaret, Michael, and every employee who found their voice along the way, it had been worth every step. They had not only transformed a company, they had changed lives, writing a new chapter in the ongoing story of workplace equality and human dignity. As news of Hartwell's transformation spread, other companies began to take notice. Industry publications highlighted the impressive turnaround, emphasizing the positive impacts on employee satisfaction and productivity. Michael and James were invited to speak at conferences, sharing their insights on building an inclusive workplace. The ripple effects of their actions extended beyond Hartwell. Other businesses inspired by their example started reassessing their own cultures and policies. The conversation surrounding workplace discrimination and the importance of diversity reignited across the corporate landscape. For James, witnessing this broader impact was both thrilling and humbling. He often reflected on that pivotal moment in the bathroom when he had remained silent against injustice and how differently things might have unfolded if he had spoken up then. Yet, he learned that it's never too late to do the right thing, and that one person's courage can inspire many others. As the months turned into years, Hartwell Industries continued to evolve and grow, becoming known not just for its products but also for its values. Top talent from diverse backgrounds sought positions there, attracted by its reputation for fairness and opportunity. Meanwhile, Margaret, now retired, found fulfillment in her new role as an advisor to the mentorship program, helping to shape the future of the next generation of employees. Margaret continued to be a cherished figure within the Hartwell community, her story woven into the fabric of the company's history. It served as a reminder of their journey and the importance of their ongoing commitment to equality. The mentorship program she guided flourished, nurturing the next generation of leaders who would uphold the values of respect and inclusion. James, for his part, never forgot the lessons learned during the transformation. Each day, as he entered the office, he made it a point to greet every employee he encountered, from the newest intern to the most senior executive. He understood that in a truly inclusive workplace, every contribution counted. One day, about 5 years after the changes had begun, James received an unexpected email from a young intern named Aisha in the marketing department. She requested a meeting to discuss something important. Intrigued, James agreed. When Aisha arrived at his office, he noticed a blend of nervousness and determination in her demeanor. "Mr. Anderson," she began, "I wanted to thank you personally for everything you've done here at Hartwell." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "My grandmother used to work here." James leaned in, a flicker of recognition sparking. "Your grandmother?" Aisha's eyes brightened. "Yes, Margaret Johnson was my grandmother." Emotion surged through James. "I had no idea she had a granddaughter working here. She encouraged me to apply," Aisha continued. "She shared all the stories of the changes here, about you and Mr. Harrison. She said Hartwell had become the kind of place she always hoped it would be." Touched by Aisha's words, James replied, "Your grandmother was an extraordinary woman. We owe her a great deal." Aisha smiled. "She spoke highly of you, too. She said you were the one who finally stood up and told the truth about what was happening." She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "That's actually why I wanted to meet with you. I've noticed some things in my department, nothing as severe as what my grandmother experienced, but there are attitudes and comments that make me uncomfortable. I hesitated to say anything being new, but I remembered her story and knew I had to speak up." James listened carefully as Aisha detailed her concerns. While the issues weren't major infractions, they involved subtle biases and microaggressions that, if left unaddressed, could foster a hostile environment. When she finished, James nodded solemnly. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Aisha. You absolutely did the right thing by speaking up. We will address these issues immediately." He paused before adding, "Your grandmother would be proud of you. It takes courage to speak up, especially as a newcomer." Aisha's eyes glistened with tears. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson. That means so much to me." After Aisha left, James sat back in his chair, deep in thought. Margaret's legacy thrived, not only through the policies they had implemented, but also in the courage she inspired in her granddaughter. This was a powerful reminder that their work had a real, lasting impact on lives. The following day, James convened a meeting with the heads of the marketing department. Without revealing Aisha's identity, he discussed the concerns she raised and outlined a plan for additional training and accountability measures. As he spoke, he observed various reactions in the room. Some looked uncomfortable, while others nodded in agreement, but everyone listened intently. "I know some of you might think these issues are small or that we're being too sensitive," James stated, "but these small things form the foundation of our culture. Every comment, every action, no matter how minor, shapes our work environment. We have a responsibility to ensure it is one of respect and inclusion for everyone." In the weeks that followed, James collaborated closely with the marketing department to implement the new measures. He regularly checked in with Aisha to ensure she felt supported and heard. As news spread about how the situation was being handled, James noticed a subtle shift in the office atmosphere. People seemed more conscious of their words and actions, more willing to speak up when they observed something inappropriate. It wasn't always easy. Challenges and moments of tension still arose. But with each confrontation, the company grew stronger and more unified in its commitment to equality and respect. One evening, as James prepared to leave, he received a call from Mr. Harrison. "James," Mr. Harrison said warmly, "I wanted to let you know that we've been recognized by the National Association for Workplace. The National Association for Workplace Equality announced that they would honor Hartwell with their annual award for outstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion." James felt a swell of pride. "That's fantastic news, sir. It reflects all the hard work everyone has put in." "Indeed," Mr. Harrison replied, "and I'd like you to accept the award on behalf of the company. None of this would have been possible without your dedication and leadership." After hanging up, emotion washed over James as he thought of Margaret, Aisha, and all the employees who had discovered their voices over the years. Their journey had transformed from one of fear and silence to one of openness and respect. While the award validated their efforts, James knew the real reward lay in the daily reality of Hartwell Industries. It was in the confident smiles of employees who felt valued, in the vibrant discussions where diverse opinions were welcomed, and in the understanding that everyone had an equal chance to succeed. As he gathered his things to leave, James paused by the window, gazing out at the twinkling city lights. He wondered how many other companies were on their journeys toward equality, how many employees were finding the courage to speak up and challenge the status quo. He hoped Hartwell's story would inspire others, just as Margaret had inspired him, demonstrating that creating an inclusive workplace was not only the right thing to do, but also beneficial for business. With a smile, he switched off his office light and headed home, ready for the new challenges and opportunities tomorrow would bring. As he walked through the parking lot, James recalled something Margaret had told him shortly before her retirement. "Change doesn't happen overnight, James. It happens one day at a time, one person at a time. All we can do is keep moving forward, keep doing what's right, and trust that it makes a difference." Her words resonated with him, guiding him through tough days and celebrating moments of triumph. Now, as Hartwell stood on the brink of national recognition, he recognized the truth in her message. They had transformed their company, one day at a time, one person at a time, changing lives, including his own. Driving home that night, James felt deep gratitude, grateful for the second chance to do the right thing, for leaders like Mr. Harrison who had the vision and courage to drive change, and for individuals like Margaret and Aisha, whose strength in adversity inspired so many others. Most importantly, he was thankful for the chance to be part of something bigger than himself. A movement slowly but surely reshaping corporate America to create a world where everyone, regardless of background or position, could feel valued and empowered to reach their full potential. As he pulled into his driveway, James made a mental note to call Margaret in the morning to share the news about the award. He knew she would be proud, not just of the recognition, but of how far they had come. The story of Hartwell Industries was far from over. New challenges awaited, but James was ready. He understood now that one person could indeed make a difference, and that speaking up, even when difficult, could trigger a transformative chain of events for a company and an entire industry. That night, as he drifted off to sleep, James Anderson, a once silent bystander, now a champion for change, felt a profound sense of peace. He resolved to continue standing up for what was right, being the voice for those who couldn't speak for themselves, and tirelessly working to create a world where stories like Margaret's would become obsolete. True leadership was not about titles or power. It was about the courage to do what's right, the compassion to care for others, and the commitment to build a better world for everyone. In that moment, James realized he had found his true calling, not just as a successful executive, but as a catalyst for change, a champion for equality, and a beacon of hope for those dreaming of a more inclusive world. The narrative of Hartwell Industries, of Margaret, of James, and all those who found their voices along the way would continue to inspire others for years. It served as a reminder that change, no matter how entrenched the injustice, is always possible. With courage, perseverance, and a commitment to doing what's right, they could create a world where everyone had the opportunity to thrive. As dawn broke over Hartwell Industries, the company stood ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their commitment to forge a better world, one day at a time, one person at a time. Perhaps that was the greatest victory of all. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing to my channel. I put significant effort into creating these impactful narratives, and your support truly means the world to me. Thank you for being part of this journey.